Hello and welcome everybody into another edition of the Espo Show here on the Arizona Varsity Podcast Network. I am Greg Esposito, the Espo in the Espo Show, and really excited to be here with you tonight. We've got a special episode. I am a bit of a nerd when it comes to sports video games. I have been since I was a kid. A passion of mine since I put that first quarter into an NBA Jam arcade machine, and actually before that, but that was the moment I think I became addicted to sports video games. Was that first summer I dropped that quarter into an NBA Jam machine and then wound up spending every dime I could find the rest of that summer and for years to come on playing that video game. So I thought it would be great this week to talk about the greatest sports video game of all time. And I'm not going to do it alone because me sitting here talking for 30, 40 minutes about video games alone, that's sad. But when we bring in my guest, it actually becomes a little bit of fun. And my guest this week is a guy that I love. I've had him on one of my other podcasts. I always enjoy talking with him. He is Saul Bookman of Total BS Podcast, one of my favorite guys. Saul, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Espo? How are we doing today?
Oh, good. How are you, my friend?
Oh, just grinding like everybody else.
Yeah, well, that's what we're all trying to do, right? I mean, that's all we can do in these current times is try to grind. So this is going to be a unique way to do this because we could sit here and we could debate greatest sports video game of all time. You say Madden, I'll say NBA Jam. Someone in the chat will say you guys are both idiots. It's NBA 2K. But the way we're going to go about this is we're going to do a little bit of a draft here. And we're going to have to select from different categories and try to put together our best roster of all-time sports video games. I figured that will make it a little bit more challenging than simply debating here. And as I look down to figure out exactly how our draft is going to work, because I have it in the notes, we're going to draft 5 teams or 5 games, basically. A 5-man roster, 5 video game roster. One's going to come from baseball. One's going to come from basketball. One's going to come from football. Then we got retro, and then we got a wild card area. Okay. So we're going to switch back and forth who drafts first in each category. And since you're the guest, I guess I will give you the right of first refusal as we move into our first topic, which, I don't know if it helps you or not, but it's baseball. I think it might give you a bit of an edge here. So let's proceed with the first round of the greatest sports video game draft of all time. Saul, you have the first pick in the baseball draft.
I'm going to say this before I say my first game. I will say this might not be such a popular pick, but it was nostalgic, and I just thought it was the greatest baseball game of all time, personally. And I'm going to go with Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. That was on the Nintendo 64. And I mean, I played the hell out of that thing. It was awesome. You had to time up the stick with the 2 analogs and try to time it up. And one of my friends he was just unbelievable at that game. And he was like a human cheat code, which I absolutely hated his guts because I would lose to him all the time. But it was a fun game, and I just loved it. So
yeah,
that's my first round pick right there.
I cannot give you too hard of a time about it because I think that it was close to the top of my list. I think it's a great game. It came out at the height of Ken Griffey Jr.'s powers on the actual baseball field, which helped as well because there was not a more popular guy in baseball than Ken Griffey with the hat on backwards and being out there in Seattle. Nothing I loved more than watching him play the game. So I'll give you that. I think that is a solid pick, but it actually was number 2 on my baseball list. Number 1 on my baseball list, and it'll be my selection here for my baseball video game, will be MVP Baseball 2005. I believe it had Manny Ramirez on the cover, if I'm remembering correctly. But that was one of the best and one of the last great video games in terms of baseball and realistic baseball. I used to play it on the PS2 in college, which dates me, tells you how old I am playing that in college. So that is my selection in terms of what we're looking at for the baseball draft. One game, well, no, I won't mention it because it could come back up in either the retro or the wild card selection. So I will hold off on that. We can discuss it
I
later.
also have one game, so I will be right there with you if it does not come up again. So
I wonder if we're both thinking of the same one here. So next we move into the basketball selection.
yeah, so you gave me baseball, which out of the major sports is probably the least liked.
Maybe I stacked this draft. I don't know. Maybe I screwed the guest on this one. I don't know, but basketball and the nice thing about this category though is no matter where I go with the first pick here, you're going to have a lot on the table. Basketball video games have been some of the best and most solid sports games, whether it's simulation or arcade, in the history of sports games. So I'm going to take. I'm not gonna mince words. I'm not gonna sit here and dance around about it. It's NBA Jam. I mentioned it in the opener. I'm sitting in the undisclosed walk-in closet somewhere in the East Valley, and right outside the door is the placard from an old NBA Jam arcade machine. It is my favorite video game of all time across genres, so I have to go with it. Number one in basketball, NBA Jam is mine.
Okay, well, I am going. I have never been prone to the arcade style video games. I always gravitated towards something that was a little bit more realistic, something that gave me a little bit of control, some little, maneuvering team wise. And for me, the very first game I can remember where I could actually do that was NBA Live 95, and that is my number one. Live 95, I mean, oh my goodness, the teams on that. You had Sean Kemp and the Sonics, you had Chris Mullin and the Warriors, I believe at the time, and Penny and the Orlando Magic. I mean, it was just awesome. It was just such an awesome game. And I actually have a story about NBA Live 95. Back when I was a youngin', I was a sophomore in high school, went down to Tucson to play in a basketball tournament. We were all cooped up in a hotel room, much like probably the NBA players today. And they're all sitting there, and we're playing NBA Live 95. And one of my teammates has the Orlando Magic, and he's up by like 25 points in the fourth quarter. The other guy had Chris Mullin and the Warriors, and Chris Mullin could not miss a three in the fourth quarter. He came all the way back and won the game, and everybody just kind of went berserk. And it was just like, that was the greatest game of all time, man. It was just, it was awesome.
A little Run TMC.
Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Look, man, that was actually my number two pick. So if I'd selected number two, we would have had the same two games here. Right? Because that's the other game that in my formative years really helped define a love for basketball as well. It was right in the heyday of Barkley and KJ and Marley in the Valley, when many people my age fell in love with the game. That was the first real basketball game, that non-arcade game that we got into, and we played the heck out of it. And we didn't even have a video game system, my buddy Chris and I, back in the day. We were playing it on computer. And you know how difficult it is to play two-man NBA Live 95 on a keyboard?
No.
Kids don't know how real that pain was that summer that we sat there pounding on that keyboard trying to play that game on one real. I probably have calculators that have more memory and more computing power than the computer we played NBA Live 95 on that whole summer. So but a great choice there. I agree with you. I'm not going to argue with you on that point. I'm sure we will get to one where one of us takes something so bizarre that the other one goes, "You're an idiot." And I'm guessing it comes in the retro area. What I have queued up, you're probably just gonna look at me and go, I don't know you. I wish I was not on a show named after you, because this is embarrassing. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
You know what? I think you might underestimate where I might go with my retro pick. So I guarantee you it's gonna come out of left field for you.
Look, man, if we have the same one, that's gonna blow my mind. Like it's gonna be crazy if we have the same game.
When we talk about injuries, yeah, I'm about to go there with my retro pick. I guarantee you, I've had some severe injuries with my hands when it came to that game.
All right. So we move into football, and you complain that I got basketball number one, but you get the football number one pick in this video game draft. And I think it's very tough. I mean, I got Madden right over my shoulder here in the studio. So I think we know where you're going number one, but you might surprise us here.
Well, I don't think you know where I'm going to go. I mean, I love Madden. I love the Madden series. I do. However, I am a sucker for NCAA football, and I
Okay.
think the very last edition of NCAA football 2014 is the way I got to go. Although I will say this in a very, very close second, I do have my 2013 copy of NCAA football because it was the only one I could find. 2014 was completely sold out. This is several years ago, and I wanted to play it, but that's just how it is. 2014, I mean, you can't beat it. I wish the game would come back, and that's where my number one is because it was just all the levels, the recruiting, the scouting, the gameplay, the getting to the national championship, the BCS play. I mean, everything. It was awesome.
I again, tough to argue with NCAA football, and I think it's become more of a beloved game because we don't have it anymore. Since it's not there anymore, not available, I think that plays a factor into it. But for me, I got two here, and I'm going to leave one on the table and try to pick it up in a later round. But I'm going to go with Madden, and I'll go with the latest edition, Madden 20, because it gets better every year. I think it's tough to argue that it is the preeminent, the best football game. Yeah, you'll try to argue differently because you didn't select it, but for me, I think it's very difficult to argue that it's not the best football franchise of all time when it comes to video games because it's people wait in line the night before this comes out to get it. People wait up until the middle of the night to get their copy, and then they play it for days on end. So I'm going to go with Madden 20. That is my selection there. And
my close number 2 was Madden, but it wasn't Madden 20.
No, I guess that okay. We should have decided this beforehand, but this is crappy producing on my part.
That's okay. It's okay. We'll get to the end and we'll rehash like what our third and fourth picks were or whatever.
But should we be allowed to let somebody pick in the retro or the wild card category the same game, different year? I say no, but since you're the guest, I'm going to defer to what you feel is the right way to go about that.
I'm going to say no.
Okay, good. We agree there. Because I was going to be very upset if then you picked like 2 Maddens later on. That was going to be it for me. So
no, I will not do that. I promise.
So we move into the retro category, and now I'm left with a tough choice here because I have a game I badly want to pick, and I could save it for the wild card. And I think it's tough because there's so many things left on the board, and I'm going to go with my retro is going to be. And I have this open on here. It's World Class Track Meet. I don't know if anybody remembers this game, but with the Nintendo Power Pad, it is the OG when it comes to working out tied to digital. It was one of the most fun things you could do. And my parents would not allow me to have a video game system early in my formative years. So I did not have an NES. So I had to plan out who was I going to go play with during summer break, right? Where was I riding the bike and ditching it in the front yard of to go find an NES and be able to play? Yes, I picked my friends based on who had an NES and who had the Nintendo Power Pad with the track meet game because I knew I wanted to go have some fun. I wanted to burn some energy, and I did not want to do it in 110-degree heat like when we play basketball in somebody's driveway. So I chose World Class Track Meet with the Power Pad. That is where I went all summer long to get in my workouts on the NES. So that is my retro pick, and may very well just cost me the fan vote in this draft because most people just went, I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Well, because we're going to talk about the fan vote, I'm going to opt away from where I was originally going to go. But retro-wise, I had a doozy for you, but I don't think too many people would have either heard of it or played it. So I'm going to disregard because I'm going to go with the popular vote. And the popular vote for me was Double Dribble. Oh. Double Dribble was a classic. It started off, and then you had the, Double Dribble. And then, it was just, if you were my age, the NES, when it came out, that was the game for me outside of like Super Mario Brothers. I did have one other one But like I said, we can get into that after we're all done.
You can take it in your wild card because you have the first pick. If that's where you want to go, you're welcome to.
No. My wild card is far better than that. I don't want to waste it. So my wild card, and again, I'm a hoop head, right? So you've seen a theme. That's why maybe that's why I was so jaded about not having the number one pick for basketball. But my wild card is Coach K's college basketball, the greatest college basketball of all time. It was just like NBA Live 95. If you didn't have it, there was only 16 teams. UCLA, Arkansas, Arizona in 94. So the Wildcats were awesome. I'm a U of A guy. You're a U of A guy, of course. I can appreciate that. My buddy Corey Williams was actually in that game. And this is where the Ed O'Bannon thing came through. This is where Ed O'Bannon ruined college basketball because of Coach K's college basketball. This is the reason why he wanted to get paid for his likeness, because UCLA was dominant in that game. And so they had Tyus Edney, they had Charles O'Bannon, they had Ed O'Bannon. They just had a phenomenal team. And then Arkansas had, Scotty Thigpen. And it was awesome. I loved it.
Coach K college basketball. You could have picked any game that was still on the board of any sport genre, and go Coach K's college basketball.
It was one of the games. It was like one of the first games where you could actually like fly down the court and dunk on somebody and break the backboard. It was awesome.
All three of our listeners are scrambling to Google right now to understand what game that is.
If you ever, oh my gosh, I'm telling you, Espo, I can't even. That's like my number one on the entire board.
Really?
It was just nights. We would just play and play and play. Just go. It was awesome.
Coach K's. Okay.
Yep.
You're welcome to it. Now I'm left with a plethora, a cornucopia of sports video games just sitting here.
With your track and field one, so it's okay.
Well, I'm going to make up for it here because I'm going to take the OG of football games, Tecmo Super Bowl. That was the first time that people really got into football games, right? You could basically do anything with Bo Jackson. Like literally, it was like a human cheat code in that game. But my favorite thing about that game, and this is going to be very sad to a large number of people listening to this, but it's got to be the fact that a friend of mine, Ron Wolfley, is in that game. And so I can say I actually know somebody that was in Tecmo Super Bowl. And that is one of the reasons I choose it. But it is such a fun game and such a unique game in that it was the first really when it came to football like that. So Tecmo Super Bowl. So I'll give you my 5 again if I can remember them. Let's see. We started with baseball. So it's MVP 2005. Then we go to basketball. I got NBA Jam in that category. We go to football. I got Madden 20. Then we go into the retro, and I got World Class Track and Field with the Nintendo Power Pad, and then I get Tecmo Super Bowl in the wild card round. All right.
Yep. So and then I have Ken Griffey Jr. baseball, and then I have NBA Live 95. I have NCAA football 2014. And then I have Double Dribble, and then my wild card is Coach K's college basketball. So that's where right now. Do you want to do the leftovers, who we did not pick?
Well, look, let me just say this. I don't want to be rude to a guest, but since we're friends, man, I kicked your ass in that. All right, you can't hold a candle to my 5 with your 5.
I don't know about all that.
It's like the scene in Anchorman where all the news teams brawl. You're the PBS squad. All right, I'm sorry, my friend. Anyway,
I want to put this to a vote and see how bad I win or lose.
Oh, we will, my friend. Don't you worry. And no pulling in any professional accounts you happen to run to help you skew the vote in any way.
Fair enough.
So leftovers. I mean, there's a lot of great sports games still on the board. One that sticks out to me, and I don't know if it's even in your list or in your thoughts here, but 2 Arch Rivals, which was just a guilty pleasure basketball game where you could actually punch opponents and stuff. It was like if you married NBA Live 95 and that game, you kind of got an NBA Jam type game. It was far more absurd than NBA Jam was. Just you could have oil cans on the court. So Arch Rivals was one, but another one for me, Slugfest. Do you remember MLB
Oh
Slugfest?
yeah, oh yeah.
That game was a lot of fun. That was a lot of college dorm nights, playing that game. Basically, the NBA Jam of baseball, and everything that people complain about baseball, it's too long, too much time between pitches, it's boring. MLB Slugfest took all of that out of the game. It was steroids baseball on steroids, if that's even possible. It was next level crazy in terms of the home runs you could hit, the crazy things you could do. You could get on fire. That one was particularly fun for me. But who was left on your list that neither of us picked?
So RBI baseball, I think
Ooh,
that's a classic.
very
You
classic.
can't, I could have gone that way. That's probably one of the first ones that people would play, back then. So I thought that was a good one. I actually had NBA 2K16 on there
Hmm.
because 2K16 was when they introduced the My Career mode.
Yeah.
And of course, Steph Curry was on the cover, and I'm a big Steph Curry fanboy. So, and then Madden '04, because
Okay.
that's the one that had Michael Vick,
Yep.
and Michael Vick was unstoppable in that game.
Yeah, that was right around the time of the Michael Vick Experience Nike commercial, and
Exactly.
yeah, he was that first quarterback in Madden where you really felt like you could basically do anything with him. So I think that's a great call on that one. I'm trying to think, there's so many great games that did wind up getting
I
left on
also
the
had
favorite four.
Bird versus Jordan versus Bird.
Oh, that was the one where you could
Yeah.
do the 3-point shootout and a dunk
hmm
contest in that. I
Yeah. And that
remember.
was the first one that featured. Well, first of all, I had Jordan in it, number one, and we
Yeah.
know how later on down the road Jordan wasn't in any of the video games because of licensing agreements. But yeah, I mean Jordan versus Bird, it featured two, all pros, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I agree on that one. And then, what was the I Barkley Shut Up and Jam is a ridiculously bad game, but that almost makes it fun, I think. And it was around the time that Barkley was king of the valley, so I played that game far more than I'd like to admit. But NFL '94 on Sega. I don't know if this was in your wheelhouse, but to me, that still may be a better game than Madden. It's some of the versions, many of the versions of Madden. That was just a very fun game. I'll never forget the commercial because Sega had those really loud, really brash commercials, and
Mhm.
this one had Joe Montana in it, and he had just been traded to the Chiefs that
Yeah.
previous year, and the whole commercial was about you could now trade players, and you could trade Joe Montana, and he was standing in under center, and they kept changing his jersey, and he wound up in a Jets jersey at one point at the end, I think. And it just that will forever stick in my head too. I love that one. But what was your massively obscure one that you thought would cost you the draft if you took it?
So back in the day, on I can't even say Commodore 64 because that wasn't even the system it was. It was like a Texas Instruments computer or whatever. My buddy had it was just called Summer Olympics. That's
Nice.
all it was called. And you could do track and field, you could do the pole vault, and you could do swimming. And the track and field and the swimming were the most ridiculously hard things to do because first of all, you had a joystick, okay, just like an Atari joystick, and you had to you got to imagine like this stick right here, and you're trying to go back and forth as fast as you can, and it would just rub this part of your hand completely raw, and so by the time you're done and you hoist up the gold medal, you're like bleeding all the way down your arm, and but you won, so who cares? So it was the Olympic Games, swimming, running. It was pretty cool.
See, so that makes me not feel that bad that I chose a track and field game because that was the one you so badly wanted to choose a track and field game as part of your grouping, so I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that we don't have more track and field type things because it gives you a little bit more variety in the video game as opposed to just football or just basketball. You know what I mean? But oh well, it is what it is.
So, what is your worst sports video game of all time? I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but what is your worst?
I got it. So Dreamcast. had a football game in, I want to say 2000, 2001. It was a pro football game, and they had licenses for all the teams. But man, that gameplay was just trash. I did not like that game at all. Also, there was another arcade game, and I'm losing my thought here. You could only play it at the arcade. It was a football game, and it was almost similar to an NBA Jam, except it was just it was so well done. That was another one I wanted to point out. I can't remember that game.
NFL Blitz?
No, it wasn't NFL Blitz. It wasn't like that.
It
was actually a little bit more coordinated.
High impact football? I remember that.
High impact football, baby.
Did I just pull that out? Yep, there you go.
Hell yeah.
That was fun.
That was, it was so awesome.
You could hit a guy so hard that his pads would fly off in that game.
Yes. And you could even get a code to where they were playing in skulls.
Yes.
Yes.
So crazy. Well, for me, it's technically not sports games, but there's two that since they feature such high profile athletes, I feel like you almost have to mention it. Chaos in the Windy City, where Michael Jordan is some kind of like hero trying to save Chicago, is just an atrocious game, and everybody wanted to play it because, well, he's not an NBA Jam, but he came out with his own game, and we got to check out what this is. And it was trash. Like, it was bad. And then Shaq Fu, which was just another just horribly ill-conceived game that just had a big-name person on the cover of it. And I just found out that Shaq is actually rebooting that game for mobile devices. So yeah. Bad choice by Shaq. A lot of great choices by Shaq, but that was almost this choice to reboot that game was almost as bad as when he pointed at his ring finger here in Phoenix after they traded for him, just reminding everybody that the Suns have no rings. That was basically what that was a reminder of. So
still hurts.
Any other?
To be fair, Shaq has made a lot of bad choices.
Oh, yeah.
Besides just that video game.
Wow, we see that the commercials all the time. Icy Hot, the General, all sorts of random things that Shaq just decided, well, I have all this money, but I might as well just make more by doing really bad commercials and pretending to be a DJ and all the things.
Coming at Dame Lillard, like, come on, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, not good. Yeah. No. So, any other games you want to talk about before I let you go?
No, I think we're there, man. I appreciate the time. And Bulls versus Blazers.
Ooh,
that's the other one. Bulls versus Blazers. If you had Reggie Miller, all you had to do was go to the one spot just ahead of the hash mark on the side of the court, and he would not miss. If you could just time every single shot, and I'd average 80 with Reggie Miller if I had the chance. So that was the only other video game that I was kind of nostalgic about. But and honestly, like, I know we didn't throw in hockey. And you have NHL 20, I have NHL 20. Hockey games are fun to play.
They are.
They're just fun, and so I feel like we should have mentioned that at least once.
Probably should have. Yeah, especially because I put one behind me. I didn't even realize that was sitting right next to my head in the studio. Oops. No offense, NHL. I do love you. And Wayne Gretzky's 2-on-2 hockey from the N64 days was a spectacular video game. And then most of the you've got NHL 94 where you can make little Wayne's head bleed for the Swingers fans out there. Yep. Superfan 99 over there. And then the NHL series now that EA does also quality still. So you're right.
Also, Tiger Woods golf. That was pretty legit too. PGA Tour stuff. That was. We could go on and on and on. There's so many games out there that were they're just really awesome. FIFA. Holy crap, that's probably the most popular one in the whole world, and we didn't even mention it.
Yeah, so. Probably should have taken that with the wild card slot. Oops.
Yeah. That probably could have been an easy win right there.
I'm pretty sure somebody could pick 5 other games that we didn't pick and beat our selections based on what we've just gone through. So we're gonna throw it out there on Twitter, though. I'll put together a poll. People can vote on who has the better squad at Espo. You'll be able to find that. But Saul, why don't you let people, the fine folks watching or listening to the show, know how they can find you?
Yeah, they can find me at Twitter at Saul_Bookman. And then you can also follow us at the Total BS Podcast. We run our shows every Sunday night. opposite of you guys when you guys do yours in the morning. And then we also do a podcast midweek. And this week we'll be doing a little bit of baseball talk. And we just launched our other podcast today. So, yeah, you can follow us, Total BS Pod.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend it. Check it out. They were even kind enough to have me as a guest. So they don't have high standards, but they have high quality in terms of their talk, at least on the show. So, Saul, thank you so much for joining me on the program. Happy to get a debate this with you. I knew you were the perfect guy to do this with.
Anytime, my friend. I appreciate it.
He is Saul Bookman, and now it is time for my favorite segment on the show because, you know what, I'm self-centered. So having a chance to be all by myself and share my thought of the week with you is a big one for me. So this week, what we're going to talk about is the fact that, and I think it's appropriate because there's been talk of potentially even the NBA using the 2K soundtrack, crowd soundtrack in the arena in Orlando this year in bubble play. But for me, it's the fake crowd noise that we're hearing in sporting events. Got to experience it truly for the first time over the last few days when it comes to Diamondbacks baseball. And the oddest way that it struck me was the fact that I was listening in the car the other night, and Greg Schulte's talking about how they're at Chase Field broadcasting the game that's being played in LA. They're sitting in a pretty much dark stadium. There's no fans in LA, and yet I'm hearing crowd noise. Like, why are we pretending like things are normal? Okay, things are not normal. These are the weirdest sporting events we're going to see in our lifetime, hopefully. It is bizarre. There are no fans there. We cannot pretend there are fans there. You can put hundreds of thousands of cardboard cutouts in an arena, in a stadium, and pump in as much fake crowd noise as you want, but we're not going to buy that it's actually people there. And I get it. It may be to try to make the athletes feel like it's a little bit more normal, but in particular in baseball, when you're standing in the batter's box and there's not anybody in any of the bleachers around you and you hit a home run and it's hitting empty seats, you know, unless you're playing in Tropicana Field with the Rays, you're not used to that. So the fact that we're sitting here trying to make believe that things are semi-normal seems ridiculous to me. And the reason it's frustrating to me is you had an opportunity across sports to do truly unique things with broadcasts and in general where you could have experimented with things. You could have mic'd up more players. You could have given a totally different way to experience the game. And if there was ever a time to experiment with those things, even in a game that holds tradition so tightly as baseball, it's now. You are playing the most awkward season in baseball history. 60 games. Usually it's a slog of a marathon, and now it's going to be a sprint. And we have no clue how this is going to play out. You could have done anything you wanted this year. I mean, you put the DL or the DH, no, excuse me, the DH in the National League, right? If you're going to do that, you could have gotten away with anything, especially when it came to broadcast. And I wish there had been a little bit more of that. And I know MLB put out an app that fans are going to be able to try to basically influence what the fake crowd noise in a stadium is during the game. I just don't know. And we haven't obviously seen how it's going to play out in the NHL and the NBA and the NFL. But the NBA is going to be really weird because they showed pictures of one of the courts they're playing on, and they're not even pretending they're stands. I mean, it's basically curtained off. So hearing crowd noise without even seeing seats is going to be truly bizarre as well. And then the NHL, we don't know how that's going to play out, but we're going to find out in about a week when everybody takes the ice in Toronto and Edmonton. So that's my rant this week. I wish there was more creativity. I wish we weren't getting fake crowd noise. I wish we were getting some kind of different experience by miking up the players, giving me an unfiltered look at things. I get it. FCC regulations, you would have had to have a delay on it, but still, it would have been truly unique and truly interesting. Instead, we're basically getting a video game soundtrack. Well, that's the show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Glad to have you with us here on the Espo Show. Thanks to my guest, Saul Bookman, for our debate about the greatest sports video games of all time. Like I said, I'll put our 5-game rosters on Twitter. You can vote for who had the better roster. You can follow me at Espo to find that. Don't forget to listen to all the great shows on the Arizona Varsity Podcast Network. We have plenty of great programs for you to check out. The Sandy Charles Show. Chili does some great work over there. The Take It Easy podcast. I recommend checking them all out. All great hosts, all great listens for you over there. It is hashtag Team AZV. So for Saul, I'm Greg Esposito, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Espo Show.